Arizona basketball gets clearly outclassed at Iowa State. There were a number of concerning aspects to this game.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke, Locked On, your team every day. All right, now we're going to talk about Arizona and Iowa State. There was a lot of bad things that came out of this game. There were some not very good things, and we're going to get a little bit of an ASU look ahead. But first, Iowa State is a better basketball team than Arizona. Just is what it is. There's no doubt about it. Listen, Arizona, I know you won in McHale. I get all of that. But at the same time, you watch that game, and I know you got the Caleb Love 94-footer, and you won then in overtime. I get that. But if you watch the whole game, you kind of came away, at least I did, thinking that Iowa State was a better team than Arizona. And keep in mind, they were missing their perimeter sharpshooter. So there's obviously that. Then, I think with the other thing that you got to factor in as well, that Arizona just did not play well, and they probably should have lost that game. This game was over very, very quickly against Iowa State. There was no doubt about it. Iowa State was not playing around here, and they basically never let Arizona into the game. Arizona got off to a fast start, bring in Trey Townsend, and he really had nothing to do with the outcome of the game. It was just kind of emblematic. Arizona quickly gives up rebounds, gets a shot blocked, and they just go right down the court for another basket. Pretty much what happened. But across the board, this team's better than Arizona. They are more cohesive than Arizona. And again, I know that they've done some silly things this year. But you watch them, Keyshawn Gilbert, Curtis Jones, Milan, you've got also Deshaun Jackson, Joshua Jefferson, bring some folks in off the bench as well. They've got a good combination of three-point shooting. Not only do they have a good combination of three-point shooting, they can finish down low. They've got good ball pressure defense, just a better team. And it's a team, honestly, come March, that I could absolutely see getting to the Final Four. They were preseason top 5 for a reason, and they're well coached. That was a good environment. Now, again, there's going to be certain situations where Arizona is just not going to match up well, or Arizona is going to shoot itself in the foot. And one of the first situations where Arizona shot itself in the foot was with three-point shooting. Now, listen, I know that the sharpshooter from Wisconsin was not there in the previous game. That's fine. But after a while, he is just launching threes, and he's wide open. And these were the kind of threes, too, that weren't even hitting they were barely even hitting the net. That's how good these three-point shots look. And Arizona, it looked like they were just kind of like, well, this will stop at some point, and it just never stopped. That is a frustrating aspect to all of this, I think, if you're an Arizona fan. But that's one of their worst. That's one of their worst tendencies, though. When teams really get going from three, they essentially allow those teams to just keep going and keep going and keep going, and that is what happened. Also, this team does some really silly things out there. You do some things where you're just kind of like, what was that? And that's kind of emblematic of KJ Lewis. I like KJ Lewis, but, KJ just does some very, very frustrating things. And at some point, you've got to wonder what exactly is going on upstairs, because he's not a dumb basketball player. He does some really good things, but he'll tell Tommy Lloyd, he'll say, hey, coach, keep me in. Don't worry, I got my second foul. And then he proceeds before the ball's even inbounded to foul the guy again. Like, what are we doing? He fouls out of the game. There's some real hacker, shots as well. That part is just frustrating, and it continues to happen, and it can't really happen in games like that. Also, the other thing too that I think is really, really annoying is that Arizona, when they do get when They do get out in transition. I can't count how many times there's a dumb turnover. They don't finish around the basket. And again, this is still a good Arizona team, but it is a frustrating Arizona team. And it's because you kind of just see the same things game after game after game, and you're wondering exactly what's going on. But KJ for about 2 weeks has really struggled. And it's the struggles too that are really magnified, that are really, they're at the worst time. And again, you could say that he didn't foul the three-point shooter, fair, but sooner or later you have a reputation for fouling three-point shooters, and that is going to come back and haunt you. That's exactly what happened in that game. He might not have fouled. I think it was Lipsy. I'm not for sure, but sooner or later you got a reputation for doing that. And I think that's 8, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's 8 fouled three-point shooters on the season. I don't know how that happens. Sooner or later, that gets on the scouting report, and that is just a problem that is going to continue to occur and is going to continue to occur. Arizona's got to stop that. KJ's got to stop that because he's better than that. Now we're going to talk about Caleb Love here in a second, because there were some things about Caleb Love that were very frustrating as well. But first, FanDuel, my friends. FanDuel, March Madness is here. This is the time that you want to get in on FanDuel. When the game tips, the NBA action is just getting started, and there's no better place to get in there than FanDuel, America's #1 sports book, ladies and gentlemen. With FanDuel, you can place live bets throughout the game, so even if you miss the opening tip-off, or or the fourth quarter comeback, you could stay in the action. That's what's fun about it. And if you're looking for a bigger payout, you can combine your live bets into a same-game parlay. Not a lot of places offer that. That's a pretty cool little gift right there. And again, you got the NBA here. You got March Madness just right around the corner. You want all of this to occur. So that is obviously an awesome thing. Right now, new FanDuel customers can get $150 in bonus bets if your first $5 bet wins. Just visit FanDuel.com to join today. That's FanDuel.com for your shot at $150 in bonus bets, my friends. Make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And again, you got March Madness here. Make the game a little bit more interesting, because FanDuel is certainly trying to help it make a little bit more interesting for you. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. Locked on, your team every day. Now, let's talk a little bit about Caleb Love. I like Caleb Love. You all know that. But these are the type of games that Caleb Love's just got to bring it. And if Caleb Love doesn't bring it, then Arizona's not going to win. He can't have games like that. He had a couple three-point shots, but overall, he didn't play well. And he got some free throws, but you can't have the 4 for 14 games. We're this late in the season. You just can't have them. I think that's a part that's a little bit frustrating if you're an Arizona fan, is that this continues. There's been a lot of games this year where Caleb's kind of been missing in action, and that just can't happen. Overall, he's played pretty poorly against Iowa State. He's played pretty poorly against Iowa State this season. Obviously, he had the big shot. I get all of that, but at the same time, it's a little bit frustrating watching it, just kind of how it unfolds, because there's going to be a game like this in the NCAA tournament, and Tommy Lloyd talked about it. He said, listen, he said, we've got to find out ways to be able to beat these teams without Caleb Love playing great basketball, and I think right now you kind of feel like they're not really at that point. I think that's a frustrating point to all of this. So there's obviously that. But, if Caleb Love and KJ Lewis are playing terribly, Arizona's not going to win games against good teams. They're just not. Arizona needs those two guys to play well. And if they're not, if they're not giving a great effort, then that's just going to be the case. Now, we also got to talk about the perimeter defense. When Arizona loses games, there's either one of two reasons. It's because they decide they are not going to defend the 3, which happened last night, or they decide that they are just going to turn the ball over left and right and just give the ball right back. I mean, again, it's a team that doesn't have there's a lot of low IQ moments at times. There just are. It is what it is. That's what happened. And you look at BYU. The reason you lost to BYU, you turned the ball over nonstop. You look at the game against Iowa State. Why did you lose that game? Well, because you decided that you were just going to give wide open threes after wide open threes to people that aren't even hitting the net. That's how good those shots look. And that's just kind of been the case for this team this year, that when they play poorly, that's why. And that's, I think, the frustrating aspect of this squad is that they don't play. Again, it's a frustrating team, because you see glimpses where they're really tough. You see glimpses where you're like, okay, cool, like we got this going. Things are going in the right direction, and then you tune back in like a week later, and you're like, whoa. We're right back to where we started, and that's just something that I think is super, super frustrating in this basically in this entire endeavor for Arizona, is that you just really don't know exactly where you're going to be at any point. There's that. Now, Arizona does have something going in its favor, though, that is going to be very, very good for it, hopefully. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now there is something that is very, very nice for this Arizona basketball team that it's got going for it that I think we need to properly appreciate, and that is Arizona State is coming to town Tuesday. Now, it does suck that it's a late tip-off. It's a 9 p.m. tip-off. Boo, boo, grr, grr, grr. But the end of the day, this is a game that Arizona should be able to win. Freeman, ASU's best player, is done for the season, obviously. He stinks. And Arizona State is getting blown out in games. I know Joson Sanon just had a good game, but whatever. This is a game that Arizona should win. You should be able to get back on track to a certain degree before you go into Lawrence, Kansas. ASU, I would imagine this is going to be Bobby Hurley's last game at ASU. When he's playing Arizona, unless Arizona plays them in the Big 12 tournament. Bobby Hurley, what's weird about Bobby Hurley is that I was fine with Bobby Hurley. Again, I hope he's there at ASU forever. I was fine with Bobby Hurley. The problem, though, is that after a while, when you call out players from other teams and then you don't apologize, I have an issue with that. I can't have that happen under any circumstance, because that's just, you lost that game because your team melted down and you melted down, coach. No other reason. That's really all that it comes down to, is that you melted down, and it was that. So, Arizona, though, should be able to win this game. If you don't win this game in McHale, then you got serious issues. You got serious concerns at that point. It's a late game, but like I said, it's a rivalry game. Everybody knows you got to win this game. That's just kind of the way it is at. So we will see. Up as far as the lineups go, I mean, hopefully this is a little bit of a personal game for Caleb Love. You're going against Joson Sanon. A lot of people were saying Arizona would be better with Sanon. They were wrong. Caleb Love, you got to be able to eat him alive. That's got to be a point. Then the up front, Bashir Jihad. Hopefully he's going against Henry Vasar and Tobe Awaka. I do not want to see Trey Townsend in this game. Although Trey had 4 steals. I don't know where Trey got the 4 steals, but I will give Trey credit that he got the 4 steals. I'm not sure where, but cool. And then up front, I believe Quaintance is probably going to be out. This is a game that Arizona should win by 35 points. They don't win that game by a lot, then, again, you probably also have some more concerns about where this squad is headed. But that would also put Arizona at, 14 wins in conference. You go into Lawrence, Kansas, the last game of the season. Kansas isn't great, obviously. Arizona can win that game. 15-5 in conference in that first year, I think you would take it. Especially with the way that the season started out at 4-5, you would definitely take that. So, and then you got the Big 12 tournament coming in at that point. And you just kind of take your chances from there. Houston is clearly the best team in the league. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But after that, I think that probably Texas Tech, Iowa State, then Arizona. I think those are your 4 best teams. And That's just kind of where it's at. All right, now tomorrow though, we're going to talk a lot about Arizona State and what Arizona needs to do to be able to win this game, because this is a very winnable game for Arizona. They should be able to beat ASU, and looking ahead a little bit to Kansas, they should be able to beat Kansas as well. Kansas is not very good. You see it right now. There's a lot of dissension on that team. I think that they basically just kind of want to get through this season and start looking into next year as well, and then from there on out, you see what the drill is. But overall, this was a disappointing loss for Arizona, but at the same time, I'm not exactly shocked by it. I don't know that anybody else is, because I think that Iowa State's a better team than Arizona. And if you're a better team than another squad, then that kind of just comes with the target. So we'll be back with you tomorrow. Excuse me, though. We'll be back with you tomorrow. You have been listening to Locked On Wildcats, Locked On, your team every day.